everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the podcast. Today I've got another guest via Zoom. I'm literally like a broken record at this point, but my lovely friend Sophie. Hello, Sophie.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. So, Sophie is, well, you've not been on the podcast physically, but
No,
Sophie has been probably one of the most mentioned people on the podcast.
I've
Because
made recent regular occurrences, haven't I?
very regular occurrences in the stories, especially my very early lockdown
Oh,
one.
it's lovely.
Yes, and then the one with Katie, because me, Katie, and Sophie have like a group chat which me and Katie talked about that we literally rant to each other in every day. So although the people of the podcast have not actually heard or seen yet, they will know of you, Sophie. But yeah, so something that I haven't spoke about in the podcast, obviously because it's much better to get Sophie to talk about it herself, and this might take like a really dark turn and people might be like, oh my god, like I didn't think you were going to say that. But Sophie has been through a brain tumor twice, which I know people might be like, oh my god, like what? And but a bit like the one with Lydia, these topics are like really good to talk about. And Sophie's never I'm trying to like choose the right words here. You've never like been secretive about it, but you've also never been like extremely public about it either. So like, yeah,
Like,
if
I'm not bothered
someone
who
asked you,
knows.
yeah, if
Yeah,
someone asked you, you wouldn't be like really, you wouldn't not say anything, but you
no.
also don't just like put it out there.
No, I
So
haven't had it on like a speakerphone or anything like that.
yes, so there will be probably lots of people that know of Sophie, because a bit like Katie, we met through work. So there might be people that listen to this that used to work with Sophie and might think, oh my god, like I literally had no idea. But this is why it's really important. And also, although it's such a serious and horrendous thing that Sophie's been through twice, it's something that I pride Sophie on, because she never takes herself seriously ever. Like, she never feels sorry for herself. Whenever she was having like a down day, she literally like apologizes for having a down day. Like, I've never known someone who can like take it on skin so much. So I thought like she was just the best person to actually talk about our experience. And then God forbid if anyone's been through this or would go through something similar, you've got someone like firsthand to talk about it, and a young person as well, because you like Sophie will probably tell you she never thought that it's going to happen to you. So yeah, Sophie, I'll let you sort of take the floor from when it started.
Thank you very much. Well, it first started, oh God, about, I can't do maths anymore, 4 years ago, 2017.
Yeah.
Back when I was working in Hoff.
Yes,
Or
in House of Fraser. This is
in
where
House
me
of
and
Fraser.
Sophie met. Yeah.
And I was on the fitting room one day, and I remember I was with my friend Lucia, and I was like looking in the fitting rooms, in the like window, in the mirrors, because where we stood there was like a mirror to the right, and I was in like a Bordeaux top, and I was like looking, and I was thinking, yeah, I've got a really big lump on the back of my neck, and I was going, I look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah, because that's as well.
Oh,
It's such a like peculiar place for it, isn't it? Because
yeah,
stereotypically, they say like check your boobs if you're a man, check your balls, things like that. You think, oh my god, if I got a lump there, you like automatically think the worst. But for you, having it in like an awkward place, you were probably at first like just like, what is this?
well, yeah, like it didn't just look like a normal lump. It
Yeah.
looked like I had bad posture. And I
Yes.
was thinking, I better like work on my posture. So for the rest of that shift, I remember I was stood like
Trying to
so
stand straight.
straight. Like I must have grew about 6 inches or something for how straight I was trying to stand. And very naively, I didn't really think anything of it.
Mhm.
So a couple of months probably went by. And then there was one day I was sitting in the pub with my friend's mum, and she's a nurse. So I just brought it up, thinking, oh, like I might as well just ask her. Like
Yeah.
it'd been playing on my mind a little bit, so I was like, oh, instead of going to the doctor straight away, I'll just ask her if it's anything to worry about. And she took one look at it and was like, yeah, you need to go to the doctor. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
as you do, like you just think, oh, it'll be nothing. They'll like have a look and turn us away straight away.
Yeah.
But then also stupidly, when people say don't Google your symptoms
Yeah,
because
but we
Google
all
tells
do.
you.
We all think we're like Google doctors, and it's like the worst thing to do, but everybody does it.
Exactly. But in Google either tells you that you're about to die or
Yeah.
that you've got a brain tumor.
Yes. Hmm.
So I Googled my symptoms in shock. Google told us that I had a brain tumour.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just Google. It'll not be that. And then it turns out that that it was.
So when you first went to the doctors about that lump, obviously they would have examined the lump and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
what test did they have to do like before you actually found out that that's what it was?
So the like original doctor's appointment was in the April or May time, and
Right.
then that summer I had to go through loads of blood tests, a couple of wee samples. I was in the hospital for quite a few mornings where you had like a tablet, and then you had to get blood tests 3 hours later. Just quite a few things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all going on in my second year of uni.
Yeah.
So I was doing a languages degree. So my third year should have been my year abroad,
Oh yes, of
and
course. Yeah.
I had me place at German uni, Augsburg uni, all sorted, like my accommodation all sorted. And I was meant to be going on like the 19th of September or something.
Mm-hmm.
And on the 9th, I had a doctor's appointment where he said, all of your tests so far are indicating that you've got a brain tumour. I want to do an MRI to make sure, but if you do, then we'll have to have surgery to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at that point, I realised that I couldn't obviously go to Germany, so
Yeah.
I had to put my year abroad on hold until I had the surgery, and then turns out that I couldn't go anyways because recovery took too long and things like that. But everything happens for a reason, doesn't it? And I'm glad that I got to stay at home because my mum was really poorly that year, and everything happens for a reason. Yeah. Anyways, that's a different story entirely, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so all of those tests indicated that I had a brain tumour,
Mm-hmm.
but I obviously had to have the MRI to make
Like
sure,
confirm it. Yeah.
to confirm it. So he sent us for one,
Mm-hmm.
and I went, but I still had a brace at the time. So I
Oh yeah,
thought,
this story. So basically, as if Sophie's mind wasn't doing overtime to the max when you're told that. Sophie went to go get the MRI with a brace on, and you're not supposed to do that. And the person literally probably nearly caused another round of problems by having the metal with the MRI.
they could have pulled me teeth out. Could you imagine? I would have been walking around with no teeth, looking like a geek 90-year-old. I was in it in the MRI machine thinking, oh my God, my teeth could come out at any moment for half an hour. I like went in and I was like, I'm not sure if I can actually have this, because I've got a metal brace. And he went, oh, we're on a schedule. You can have it. It's fine.
Stop.
Like,
I
so I
mean,
went in and I was like shaking because I was thinking, oh my God, like I wasn't even worried about the MRI at this point. I was worried about losing my teeth. And then the next time when I went to get me like results of it, he
Yeah.
went, for some reason it's really blurred and I can't see why. And I went, well, I do have a brace. Could that be why? And the doctor like took one of those massive gasps as if he was so shocked. He went, no, you didn't. And I was like, yeah, I did. And the next day I had my brace out and I was put in for another MRI.
Oh my God. I mean, that could have been more traumatic than it needed to be. But luckily, you didn't lose any teeth in the process. So that's all. That's all.
So it's just a good story to tell now.
So can you like remember? I mean, obviously it's horrible thinking back then, but can you remember like coming out of that MRI? Like, had you convinced yourself, like, yeah, I definitely do, or were you trying to stay positive, or like, what were you even thinking then?
I think in me little naive little self that I was, I didn't really think that it could be that. I was like, yeah, I'll not have a brain tumor. Like,
Mhm.
surely not. I didn't feel poorly, and I thought if you
Yeah.
have a brain tumor, surely you've got to be
Yeah, like I'm
poorly.
gonna be like, as if you need all these like physical symptoms, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the symptoms weren't like to make you poorly, it was all like appearance wise. So I had the lump on the back of my neck. My hair started to like fall out and go really thin. My
Mhm.
face, as it, you can see, for those who are watching, for those on the podcast, you'll not realise, but my face is very, very round. It was even more round when it, like before I got it out, and it was really, really red.
Mhm.
So all these little things that you don't really think of, I just thought it must have been something to do with hormones. And it is something to do with hormones, but it's where the tumour was that it had something to do with hormones.
Yes. So that was obviously that, and then the MRI obviously results came back and said that you did have it. So after that, how
Yeah.
long did you have to wait to get the surgery? Can you remember?
So I found out, um, I think, what, I'd actually been to Bongo Bingos the night before.
Right.
So I was slightly hungover when I
Yeah.
found out.
Hmm.
So that wasn't ideal either
No, I
because
mean, being hungover and getting any bad news is horrendous, but something
I was
that big is not great at all.
not ideal. And this was at like the beginning of December.
Hmm.
So they said then that I'd have to have brain surgery probably within the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Hmm.
And then I think it was around the like 22nd of December. It said that it would be on the 17th of January.
Right. So, I mean, God, like being told that like a few days before Christmas is like, I mean, no time's the best time to get told any like that in
No.
circumstance. But being told that a few days before Christmas, did that just like completely change everyone's Christmas and New Year? Or were you just thinking like, no, I'm still gonna like enjoy myself until that day?
I think it was more of a I'm just going to enjoy myself
Yeah.
until then because I don't know what's going to happen. You just don't
Yeah.
really know what could happen. So I just got really drunk for the whole of the Christmas
Yes,
period
I would
instead.
be exactly the same. The thing is, though, it's like this is what I mean about Sophie. Everyone listening and watching, like you're always like a glass half full person rather than a glass half empty, which is like amazing because anyone in there would be completely in the right mind could have just like totally like given up and like being like in total panic mode. Then do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the fact that you were just like no, like not obviously disregarding it in any means, but just being like it's like I've still got a few weeks until then. You know, we've got Christmas, I've got New Year, and I'm just gonna still be like I would regardless. Like that's amazing to have that outlook.
Yeah, well, I just think like at the time, you can't change what's going to happen. I was going to have the surgery. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no point like making the Christmas and the New Year rubbish just because I was nervous and worried, but there was nothing I could do. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't change it. I was going to have it. So I
Yeah.
just enjoyed myself, went out.
So the first surgery,
Hmm.
when you went into hospital,
Yeah.
uh, were you like nervous about? Because like it's like a fear of the unknown, isn't it? I mean, like any surgery, really. Like it's like you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they told you like, oh, you know, you're going to be in minimum of 5 days. It could be longer. This could happen. This could happen. But we want this to happen. Like, was there a part of you that would like it sort of kicked in once you got there?
Kind of, but again, like the first time, I didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
They just they told that I had to go in the night before.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like, I spent one night absolutely fine, like just chilling in the hospital with the most, obviously, hospital food is not the best, but the most rank tea ever.
We'll see.
And I was feeling fine, but I think because I was sat in the hospital thinking, oh, well, I've got surgery the next morning,
Mm-hmm.
it made us feel worse because I was
You
thinking it was the
overthink it.
only thing I had to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I'd been at home the night before, you can distract yourself. Like
Yeah.
you can sit with your family and watch some telly and stuff. But when you're in a hospital bed, it's like the only thing I could think about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, because I didn't really know
What to
what was to
expect?
come,
Yeah.
um, I was fine. Like I wasn't obviously completely fine,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think I was as nervous that time as I was this time,
The
like the
next time.
second time.
Yeah. So the first time round, you were in there for just the Was it just the 5 days afterwards?
Yeah, I went in on the Tuesday, I had the surgery on the Wednesday, and I was out by the Saturday.
So
So I
you
wasn't in for that long that time.
yeah, so you were out like sort of within the minimum amount of 5 days, which I mean probably made you feel like, oh well, that's positive. Like they haven't had to keep
Yeah.
us any longer. Like I've had the minimum time, I'm out. And then what was your recovery like after that at home? Like was there like a few weeks where you thought, oh god, like because I know you suffered like headaches afterwards, which is common. Like, was there a period of time where you just thought, oh god, like I'll never get back to normal, like this is horrendous, or did it pass quite
Yeah.
quickly?
No, the first time the recovery period was terrible. It was really like it was awful. I remember coming out of hospital on the Saturday, and then on the Thursday I had to go back in for a CT because my headaches were so bad I couldn't see, and they thought I had a brain bleed.
Oh,
So I went in for a CT, and then they put a camera up my nose to see if there was any like thing happening up there, and they couldn't find anything. There was nothing there. So they just sent us home with more painkillers. But the headaches lasted for a good 6 months. Um, it was just horrendous. I remember there was one day because I was getting quite nauseous as well with the headaches. I
yeah.
was driving along the A1 to work,
Mm-hmm.
so this was quite a while after because I'd gone back to work with a carrier bag hooked around my two thumbs at the
Because you just
steering wheel
because you felt
in
that
case.
bad. Oh,
Yeah, it was just awful. And then so the surgery's in January, and I remember that it lasted so long mainly because in the summer was the World Cup.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'd gone with my friends to see one of England games. I can't even remember which one it was now. And it got to a certain point in the day, and I was like, I'm gonna have to go home. My headache's so bad. So I'd rang my mum and dad, my brother, to see if they could come pick us up, but they'd all had a drink. So I'd just missed the bus, no taxis, because obviously England game, very busy day. So I decided I would just walk home. And I got
from Wickham?
From Wickham, yeah, to mine, which isn't that far.
No, to give people context, me and Sophie live like 5 minutes from each other. But Wickham, I mean, you say it's not quite far. That's surely like over an hour's walk, is it?
About 40 minutes.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough then. That's all.
So that's not too bad.
Yeah. But I mean, when you're nauseous and you've got really bad headaches, probably not the wisest move. But
no, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So I got to one of the bus stops. It was at Dunstan Hill Hospital.
Right.
You know where I mean?
Yeah.
And there's like a bus stop with a shelter, obviously.
Yeah.
And I had to like sit down in the bus stop because I couldn't see.
Oh my god.
It was horrendous.
But say that it's awful, isn't it? Because like you say, so that was like a good few months after. So you were like, yeah, like I'm feel all right. I'm going out. I'm having a few drinks with my friends. But then getting to that point where you're like, oh my god, no, I feel ill again. And like, was it just like a constant cycle of like feeling a bit better, so wanting to do things, but then like felt like you kept getting held back?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. And I think the prime example was around St. Patrick's Day weekend, because I'd had an appointment on the Friday with the hospital, and I'd gone to the doctor. I was like, oh, I'm meant to be going to Berlin on Sunday.
Yes, yeah.
Can I go? And he was like, well, I wouldn't recommend. You've still got loads of headaches. Your blood's aren't great. Flying in a plane won't do any good for your head. So I wouldn't recommend going. But obviously, being the true Sophie Wilson that I am,
Sophia, she's like, I'm gonna go.
Well, I just thought, if I'm going to die here, I might as well die in Berlin having a good time.
On my vacation.
You know what I mean? So I just went.
Yeah.
And we're having a lovely time. I wasn't drinking or anything like that. It was just nice time with friends, same with one of the girls who'd gone from uni. And we bumped into a flatmate on the street one day. So we're just standing, having a lovely time, having a bit of chat. And then there was this big bang. And I was like, what on earth is that? Like, what is that? And then we looked on the ground, and there was like a broken plant pot and soil all over the ground.
Right.
And Laura went, did that hit anyone? And I was like, I don't think so. And then all of a sudden I felt like blood trickled down my face.
It smashed off your head.
And the plant pot had fell off a balcony in the wind and smashed on my head 6 weeks after brain surgery.
How did you not feel that?
I was so drugged up on codeine.
I was going to say, it's also sometimes one of them things that like the shock overcomes, like you're actually feeling it. So you were like, oh, and then just seeing the blood and was like, oh.
It was all down my cream coat. Ellie, I had to get on the plane with it the next day. I must have looked like an idiot.
Did you? Was there any part of you like that panicked then and thought like, oh, like shit, like what if it's damaged something that like, because it is my head?
No, at that point I didn't really worry about that. I worried about the fact that I hadn't updated my travel insurance, so I didn't want to go to hospital.
In case you had to go to like the hospital or anything.
Yeah. So we just sat in the in Laura's bathroom with like a wet paper towel on my head and eating some tacos.
Oh my god! I mean, apart from like the brain tumor, which Sophie would put under this category, but I wouldn't put under this category because I think it's obviously much bigger than this. But Sophie has the worst luck in the world, just in general day-to-day life, right? And yeah, like that plant pot smashing off her head is like sort of a bit like a coconut falling on your head and killing you, where you think that, like, when would that ever happen to someone? But that plant pot falling off someone's balcony and smashing on Sophie's head actually doesn't surprise me, because Katie will vouch for us as well when I say this. Sometimes, I mean, over lockdown, so over this past year especially, Sophie will message us and be like, you'll never believe what's happening. It's like, you just, whatever she says, it's like, it does not surprise us anymore. Like car things, house things, just anything. She could just be walking down the street, and I don't know why, but bad luck just seems
to attract it.
She seems to get
like a bad luck magnet or something.
I mean, there was like a week where just like 5 things happened to like cars in the family, and me and Katie were like, this doesn't happen, this isn't normal, this amount of bad luck does not happen to people. So that plant pot falling on your head, it doesn't even surprise us anymore.
It was, I mean, it was quite a traumatic day, but at least it's a good story to tell as well. It makes everybody laugh.
I bet when you came home, your mum was like, "Yeah, I knew you shouldn't have went." Like being like,
Well, I was contemplating not telling her until I got home, and then Charlotte was going, I think you should just tell her. And
yeah, just in case.
So I rang her and she just laughed at us on the phone. She was like, have you? I was like, yeah.
See,
She's
you
like, oh, well, you're still talking.
That's just Sophie. That's something that happens to Sophie. Like, it's fine. Another day, another drama. It's all right.
Literally, that's what it was like. Oh, well, you're talking. It's fine.
So when you came back, so what month was that you went?
That was in March.
So that was in the March of 2019?
No, 2018.
2018, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that. And then when did you feel like, at what point, whether it was a year later or whatever, that you thought, oh, actually, I feel better? Like you sort of got back to your normal self?
Probably in about the September, October time when I went back to uni.
Right.
So because my recovery had took so long, I decided just to cancel my year abroad and go straight into final year so that because I wanted to graduate with my friends. And also I took a year out after school, so I was already kind of a year behind anyways. Yeah. I didn't want to keep prolonging it, so I just kind of thought probably something else bad luck would happen. Yeah. I'll just go into final year, get it over with. So I think that was when I started to feel like myself again. I went away that December, and then the next February I went icing with my dad, and we walked up some big glaciers and everything, and I felt like I was getting back to myself, much more healthier. And again, I didn't feel poorly at all.
Like after that.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, so basically, for a bit of context for people, and knew Sophie, would been on a night out. That's how we sort of got talking to each other and stuff. But in terms of knowing her as a friend, I didn't really know you then.
No.
When Sophie was going through all that, so I wouldn't have had a clue until I obviously know Sophie now. I would say we probably became good friends in 2019 maybe, so probably when you felt back to normal. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I just started in Phoenix that the Christmas of 2018, so it was around then.
Yeah, so it would have been after that. So Sophie says, when she started to sort of feel back to her normal self. And then obviously last year, we don't need to remind everyone, worst year of everyone's life, we went back into lockdown. And like I say, me, Katie and Sophie basically spoke every day of lockdown in this chat, just ranting to each other. And I remember you basically so it was very casual at first. It sort of said to us oh, I think I need to get back in contact with the doctors because I'm starting to get headaches again. And then obviously me and Katie didn't know you then, but we knew you'd been through brain tumor previously. So obviously we were all just being you'd rather be safe than sorry, when it's to do with your head, you've been through all this before, definitely think the doctors. And I think at first we were probably just speaking about it casually until you were oh guys, I'm starting to get headaches, I feel like what I was getting last time. In what month was that? In the very beginning?
Obviously, global pandemic, things just merge into one.
I know that. I mean, I literally can't remember because the full year was just a long month, basically.
Yeah, but I'd had me repeat bloods in the January.
Yes.
Because I have to go for them all the time. And I was training to be a teacher last year. So there was this one day in February, so this was pre-pandemic.
Right.
And it was year 10 parents' evening. And I'd had a phone call off the doctor saying that there's some abnormalities from your blood. There's nothing to worry about, but we just want to get you in for some more. Maybe have an MRI, maybe not, just depending on the results of the next set of bloods.
Yeah.
And then obviously the global pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And everything got put on the back burner kind of thing. So I didn't have the repeat bloods or the MRI until May.
Yeah. Which is a big jump from February.
Yeah. I think just because I knew what had happened the last time. And then obviously there wasn't as much to do with being locked down.
I remember a lot more. You were saying to me and Katie, you were oh, I don't know if I'm just worrying and I'm convincing myself.
Yeah.
And it might just be a normal migraine. And obviously me and Katie were well, no, Sophie, because you know what it feels like. So if you think it might be something serious, because obviously, you say, the NHS was so stretched. I mean, there still are, but at the beginning especially. And you were like, oh, I'm not like, I might not get in or I might not get seen. And I remember you sort of like, you were like, oh no, I think it might be, but like sort of trying to put it off a bit as well.
Yeah, so I'd rang them a couple of times just to be like, look, can I have the MRI? Just
Yeah.
for like peace of mind kind of thing. And they were like, nothing's happening at the minute, everything's on hold, blah, blah, blah. Which is fair enough. You can't really argue with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had loads of, like, it was really stretched at the time. And then I had a letter saying like it wouldn't be for a couple of months. And then I got another one a week later saying that it was in May. I was like,
Yes.
so confused, but I wasn't going to question it. I was like, right, I'm just going to go. And it was 7:45 on a Thursday. Now, if you remember, we used to clap for the NHS on a Thursday at
Yes.
8 o'clock.
Yes.
So I went in for my MRI and the letter's in earlier and I got out at like 5 to 8. So I was
Right.
walking through the hospital and I got to like the exit and then all of a sudden everyone started
Started
clapping.
clapping.
And I was like, yeah, they're clapping for me.
Oh my god, thanks guys. Like
VIP.
coming out the hospital car park.
But no, they were clapping for the NHS
Yeah.
carers.
So that was in
The
May.
May. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the basically like what was the I can't even remember the order of everything happened. What sort of happened after that? Were you waiting for like a phone call?
Well, I got a letter and they said that my MRI was clear.
Yes.
There was
Right.
nothing there.
I
So I
remember.
was like, oh, nothing to worry about. I remember Snapchatting you, like, yes.
Yeah, like I
Like,
was just
it was in
worried.
my head.
Nothing. Yeah.
Like, I was over the moon, dead happy. And then I got it then, obviously, because, my life is quite dramatic. My mum had kidney transplant.
Yeah. Do you want to like quickly talk about that? To like give you don't have to go into it in loads of detail, but sort of like the past few years, what you've been dealing with that alongside your stuff as well.
Yes, I can do. So my mum suffered with kidney failure since she was 19, so it's been going on a long, long time. But then in 2018, was it 2008? When that? No, 2017,
17,
the
yeah, yeah.
same year that I was going through everything. Um, my mum, she turned 50 and we went to New York for 50th, which was amazing.
Yeah.
But when we were like walking around, you could tell that she was like really tired. She couldn't really do much. So one day we had to get on the open top bus just to like see everything because she was so tired. And then I remember we came back and I went to a hospital appointment with her, and the doctor said that our our kidney function was at 1% or less than 1%. It was really, really low. So she had to go on to dialysis pretty much yesterday.
Straight away, yeah.
So she decided that she was going to do the type of dialysis that you do at home. So she would like hook up on a night time and it would dialyze throughout the night. And it was quite a big adjustment for the whole family to make because we had all this equipment in the house and everything. And she was really poorly while she was on it. She was sick quite a lot through the night. So I turned into Sophie the carer.
Yeah.
That's the
You
quite
did.
like to
And
call
the
us.
thing is though, like just to interrupt Sophie there, like Sophie says that lightly. And obviously I won't share anything personal, but like I know especially the ins and outs of things that you have had to do. And like you say like, oh yeah, I sort of turned into a carer lightly because it's like you think we love our mums or you love a family member and you have no choice, you just do it.
Oh yeah, and I wouldn't not do it. Do you know what I mean? Like
No,
my mum, I would
definitely.
do anything for her.
Of course, but that doesn't take away from how difficult it is. And at the end of the day, it was like you were what 20 were you at the time? 21 maybe.
I think I'd turned 21. I had turned 21.
So you think
So yeah,
like you're 21 and you were going through all this stuff with the brain tumor anyway.
yeah,
So yeah, just to like obviously to not take it lightly, like it was a huge thing for your family to go through, definitely.
yeah. So I was recovering from brain surgery, and my mum was on dialysis. So we used to laugh, being like it was like a competition who could be
Yeah.
the most poorly at the time. And then I got better. I recovered quite well from my surgery, and then in the August, we went on a holiday to Mallorca just as a family. And they managed to take all of my mum's dialysis like equipment. They'd like put it in the hotel in Mallorca for us to get there, so she could have the holiday and just hook up to our dialysis. Yeah, I can't speak. So she would hook up in the machine in the hotel to the machine on a night time. But 3 days in, she decided it would be a good idea to go in the jacuzzi. So she ended up in Palmer Hospital, which was, brilliant way to spend the holiday. So me and my mum had to like fly home a couple of days later so she could transfer back to the hospital here. And then a couple of months later, it was just getting infected all the time.
Yeah, like getting worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So she had to change to hemodialysis, which is where you go into the hospital 3 times a week and you sit on the machine for 4 hours. So it wasn't when she was going to the hospital for that reason. She got a plaque, so she got free parking at the hospital.
Oh yes, I mean every silver lining because hospital
Every silver lining. So
Yeah,
whenever she was in and we had to visit, we just used her car
used
and
that
got free
little
parking.
thing. Yeah.
So yeah, so then that went on from 2018. That's when she started to go on a hemodialysis. So she was on there for a good year and a half. Um, and then in March last year, so March 2020, she got a phone call. I think it was like the 17th of March or something maybe.
Yeah.
Saying, "Oh, we've got a kidney for you." So we're like, "Wow, this is amazing." I'd just been told that I couldn't go into school because I was living with a vulnerable family member. So they were like, "Stay at home because of COVID. Can't come in, blah blah blah." So I thought this is really lucky. Like I'm off, I can go to the hospital with her.
Yeah.
And then we got there. She had all the pre-transplant tests, and the doctor came in and said that it's too risky because there'd been COVID on the ICU ward where that kidney was. So they recommended not to go ahead with that transplant. So my mum was gutted.
I
But I
remember
just thought,
you telling us that, and it was just like horrendous. Like
yeah,
it was like you'd waited all this time to get like a transplant, and then it was like it just got snatched away from her while she was like this close to getting it.
yeah. And I think at the time, because she was considering going for the kidney, because the
Yeah,
doctor said it's your choice that you
your
can
choice to do
decide.
it.
And I was like, "Mum, you just don't know what's going on with this virus," because at the time nobody really had heard of it.
No.
I mean, we'd heard of it from China and stuff, but in the UK it was dead new. And
Yeah.
I think it only had 5 transplants previously where COVID had played a part, like or
Yeah.
been around, and they were like life-threatening
Yeah.
transplants. So it was
So it
either
was
like,
like it's either this or nothing sort of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas my mum was stable. Yes, her quality of life wasn't great, but she wasn't in any danger of like it wasn't going to kill her or anything like that. She was
Yeah.
stable. So we decided that it wasn't the best thing and just to wait. And in hindsight, it was the best decision that we made because she got another phone call in June, like and she got her transplant in June, so it was amazing.
Yeah, honestly, I remember when you said like, right, she's going in for it, and it was like me and Katie, honestly, because so many things had just gone wrong for Sophie at this point. Like, me and Katie didn't want to be like, yes, like amazing, like oh, because honestly, like it just happened to you so many times that like, it was like, oh wait, no. So
Yeah,
I remember we were so careful in what we said, and we were like, yeah, like we've got every finger crossed for you. Like, didn't want to say too much until it had actually happened.
happened.
And then
Yeah,
and then when you said like, right guys, like she's fine, she's got it, we were like, oh, it was like
hallelujah.
it was just like a sigh of relief. And I mean, obviously that's not like to anyone who's been through this themselves or with a family member, you'll know that the second you get the kidney, it isn't smooth sailing. I mean, your mum had, a lot of time after that where it took a lot of time adjusting, being poorly and stuff like that. But fingers crossed now things are looking up, and like that gives a bit of context of what Sophie was like going through as well as alongside our own stuff. So I mean, we've jumped to the gun a bit. So back to what we were saying. So
Go back up to my mum's transplant really because she was in hospital for like 2 weeks.
yes.
I got this letter saying that you need to come in. There's some abnormalities on your MRI. And I was thinking, 5 minutes ago it was clear. So what's going on? And at that point I knew. Like you just get the gut feeling, don't you?
And I remember you saying, like, I don't want to tell my mum because she's in hospital.
Yeah.
And obviously, you couldn't really have visitors or anything, so it's not as if Sophie was going in and out of the hospital every day. So, like, and I remember you got the letter and you sent me and Kate, you were like, I really don't want to tell her. And we were like, because it's like a moral thing. It's like, it's totally up to you, but it's like you didn't want to put any more stress on her while she was poorly. And it was like, oh, it was a horrible, horrible time for you.
So I didn't tell her. I told her when she got home because I think she got home and then 3 hours later we had to go back to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because she'd had a wound started to bleed. So I was like, right, can't tell her today.
No, yeah.
I think I'd waited a couple of days.
It's so easy for someone else to be like, you need to tell her, but I would be exactly the same because you're like,
yeah,
she's going through all that. You're like, it's fine, this can wait, even though it's about yourself. And if it was about somebody else, you'd be like, no. But when it's anything about yourself, you just always put yourself on the back seat.
Yeah, well, I just thought at the time, like, she is really poorly at that moment.
Yeah.
Whereas I've just got a letter where I could be poorly. And even though I knew, like, I did have a gut feeling that it'd come back, it could have been nothing.
Yeah. So you just
Like,
didn't want to worry. Yeah.
yeah. So I just thought there was no point putting extra stress onto her when it could be nothing.
Yeah.
And then I think I got a letter in the post, and I was really like, I just like threw it to one side because I didn't know who it was off or anything. And she
Yeah.
went, "You really did. When just open that?" I went, "Oh no, no, it's fine."
Mhm.
And then she could tell that I was
Like
hiding
you knew
something.
some.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's when it came out. And I mean, she was like, "Oh well, just be positive. Like again, you don't know
You
what's
never know.
happening.
Yeah.
It could be nothing."
Mhm.
But yeah,
After you got that letter, can you remember when it was? It still in the June when you went in for an appointment then?
it was in the July.
So it was in the July, right?
Yeah, because I would these days stick in my head because the day before I should have been graduating.
Oh, right. Of course, all the graduations got cancelled.
All
So
the
you remember
graduations
the
got
date.
cancelled.
Yeah.
And at the time, honestly, everyone was poorly last year. The dog was poorly.
Yeah.
So to distract myself, because I thought, I'm in lockdown, I should be in graduation, I
Mhm.
decided I would paint the fence.
Yes,
Do you
you
remember
did
this
because the
day?
weather had such nice weather and you were out painting the fence. I
Yes,
remember. Yeah.
it's out painting the fence. So I thought, brilliant, distract my mind from tomorrow because I was worried about the appointment and
Yeah.
everything. Um, and in true bad luck Sophie fashion, like you said, I got shit on by a bird.
You did.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
But I remember I was like, well, shit for luck. This could be a good sign. Like, to say if you get poo on by a bird, you're going to win the lottery or something.
and then my dog, because she'd been poorly, she'd had diarrhea in the garden. I went to pick it up and the bag
Well, yeah,
split.
the bag split. Yeah, this is what I mean. Honestly, anyone listening will be like, "How does this happen?" Honestly, should she messages us and we're like, Sophie, I don't like. We're running out of things to say yeah because she'll literally be like, yeah, bird shit. Honestly, yeah, put my hand in Isla's dog pooped in. We're like, Sophie, like, what? Like, I don't understand how all these trivial things just happen at once.
I feel like sometimes people think I'm lying, but like these things
If I didn't,
actually do happen.
if I didn't know you, I'd be like, God, she's a right hypochondriac, doesn't she? Actually, haven't known yet, I'm literally like, I don't understand how this happens to you. But this is what I mean. She just takes everything in her stride. Like, if I knew that I had that big of an appointment the next day and a bird pooed on me, I mean, I would have been hysterical. I would have been wrote off. Like that would have been just me being like, right, that's it, I'm done. But you just take everything on the chin, like you
And I
do.
just ran to yous instead. I send yous all the video messages instead.
It's like therapy, and I think, and then this is what I mean. And then if she does get upset about something, and she's like, "Oh God, no, I know, I'm sorry, it's not even that important," and we're like, Sophie, like throughout all of our brain tumor stuff should be like, if she got upset, she'd be like, "Sorry, how are you today anyway? It's not that important." And we're like, Sophie, we're just bored in lockdown. Like we've got nothing to complain about.
Well, everyone has their own problems though. It wasn't just me.
And
So when I was having a bad day, I was like, I must be boring them so badly.
no, you
I was like,
definitely.
how are you doing?
Yeah, that's literally what she was like. Like me and Katie would ask her like such serious questions and she'd be like, yeah. But anyway, how are you? And we're like, no, how are you? Like literally, how are you? But that's just the kind of person you are. So then, yeah, you went in obviously the next day for the dreaded appointment.
But I think obviously I'm not the only one who's had to go to an appointment alone this year. There's obviously so many like pregnant women who've had to go to scans alone.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to my appointment alone. Um, and I was sat with the doctor, the nurse, and the endocrinologist as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they just brought the MRI up and they were like, yeah, you can see here that there's that's the brain tumor. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know how to read
Yeah,
MRIs.
yeah. This is
Like, if
it.
it was
And I
helpful,
you said as well, didn't you? Like, obviously that's their job, but they like speak to you in this doctor language, and you're sort of sat there by yourself, and you're like what?
yeah.
Like,
I was honestly just so overwhelmed by it all because they just kept using these big long words, and I was like, "What are you? Can we speak in English?"
yeah, like
Like,
what's
I didn't even have another family member to like
yeah,
translate
talk
for
to
us.
about it, yeah,
Yeah, or like listen because they were saying all these things, um, and I was kind of just so I didn't. They were going, "Oh, it's going to be more aggressive this time. It's like worse, blah blah blah." So I kind of was in
you're very
shock. I
you're
don't
overwhelmed. You
really
don't
think.
listen because
Yeah,
it's
I
like
don't think I was really
you
listening.
hear one thing, like all you probably heard was it's worse this time, and then
Yeah.
everything else you just like, and because you don't have the support system there, if someone else like listening, it's like you're like, what's just happened, sort of thing.
Yeah, so like when my mom and dad afterwards kept asking like, "What did they say? What did they say?" And it was kind of a big blur.
Yeah, like
Like
don't know. Yeah.
I was like, I'm not really sure. said this, they said that, blah blah blah, but
Mhm.
I couldn't remember like fine details because I was just in shock. Like I was overwhelmed with all the information. And I
Mhm.
remember afterwards, I think the nurse had clocked on that I was a bit
Yeah.
overwhelmed, and I think it was just seeing my mum go through her transplant like really recently,
Mhm.
and then I was going through this again. She took us into a little room, and I had a massive cry.
Yeah, but see, it's like that's so lovely, isn't it? And it's like a thing to the NHS as well about why we're so thankful. Like that nurse obviously clocked you
Yeah,
there and was like, I'm just going to take her out of the doctor's way, because obviously the doctors they're amazing at the job, but their job is to just like, you know, be like this is what I need to
yeah,
tell you. But obviously her from an emotional standpoint obviously realized you were like what is going on. And I think
yeah.
you probably going in that room to cry just was what you needed, just to like
Oh,
get it all out. Do you know what I mean?
but then
And
I walked home. I was like, I can't be crying on my walk home. Could you imagine walking along the quayside, crying my eyes out?
I know, and
No,
the thing is
that's
as well,
awesome.
it was such a like strange time because the weather was so nice, and like you say, you were like, I'm just gonna walk home, and like
Yeah,
that walk, like God, if you could probably go back and think about what you were thinking about on that walk home, like it's absolute madness.
I think like on the way, I was like, I'm gonna walk home. So by the time I get home and I see everybody,
I know
I'll
what
be
you
fine.
say, yeah. Mhm.
And I got home and I was like, right, I'm ready. And then I walked in and they were all crying, and I was, oh, it set me off.
Set you off. That was
The
July.
July.
And then yeah, so that sort of told you like it's going to be worse this time round, because was there something to do with like it was in a like an awkward place this time or something?
No, so the last time, because it was the first time and I was so young, I
Mhm.
was only 21 at the time, they just took the bare minimum of the
Right,
tumour,
that was it.
because they didn't want to cause any damage to the pituitary gland. So yeah, I don't think I'd mentioned that. It's a pituitary gland tumour,
Mhm.
which is at the front of your brain.
Mhm.
So when they did the surgery, they just went up my nose. It was no like, they didn't have to shave my head. I'm very grateful for.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so they took the bare minimum the first time. They
Mhm.
must have left some kind of dodgy cells,
Yes, that
um,
yeah.
and it just grew back straight away. So
Yeah.
this time they said that it was going to be worse because they were going to take away some of the pituitary gland around it to
Mhm.
make to hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, anything around us,
Good.
um,
Yeah.
so that it doesn't come back.
Yeah. Mhm. So obviously, I mean, when you were saying to me and Katie that you were like 10 times more stress this time around, because
Yeah,
obviously it's, I mean, it's horrendous. It's like we say when you Google search thing and they tell you from like you're having a paper cut to you literally dying in an hour's time, you've got like one extreme to the other of what can happen. And
yeah,
obviously when they said to you, right, well, we're going to have to take a lot more to make sure we try and get it all, they said, like, they were sort of saying, so this might happen and this could happen and this could, and you were
yeah,
sort of like given all these scenarios. So although they're like, we're aiming just for you to be fine after this, it's like you had like, or this might potentially happen, and like all these added things that wasn't an issue last time around.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like they said that this time. I mean, I'm still in quite an early phase of recovery, so I'm not really sure what might happen, what could still
Yeah.
happen. But they gave it was a lot more serious things because it's all to do with your hormones, so it could affect fertility and things like that. So I
Yeah.
think, and as well with being in lockdown, it's all I could think about.
Yeah. Well,
Like
obviously, yeah,
there was
God.
nothing else distracting my mind. You couldn't go out and have like a good like fun time with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
I was just literally sitting in the house all the
Like
time
just
thinking, oh, I've got
thinking
to have
about
that
it.
surgery again.
Yeah. And then, I mean, as if that wasn't worse enough, you were given a date for
Oh, yeah.
surgery. I mean, Sophie, listen, because this has been like another thing that's just been like, oh my God, because of COVID. So, what was the first date that you were originally given? Can you remember?
Well, I went in the August to have the pre-assessment tests, and they
Yes.
were like, it'll be within the next 3 to 4 weeks. So I was
Yeah.
like, amazing,
Mhm.
fabulous.
Mhm.
Um, and then I got a appointment. It was going to be the 22nd of September.
Mhm.
So with COVID, obviously you've got to go in for your COVID test.
Mhm.
I went in, had my COVID test, self-isolation for 3 days. I got to the hospital, had my gown on. I remember Snapchatting you.
Yeah, you like the bag was packed, she was there, like the gown was on.
The
It was like,
straps on.
yeah,
I looked incredible with the lovely gown and everything on,
lovely hospital
beautiful.
gown, yeah.
And then I remember on the phone to my friend Francesca, who lives in Germany. And then the nurse, I could see her like looking at us from the phone at the desk, and I was like, "Oh, she's gonna come and talk to me
Like
in a
what's
minute."
going on, yeah.
And the nurse came over and like, "Oh, Francesca, I'm gonna have to go. The nurse is here." I honestly just thought that like she was gonna have to take some more bloods or something. Um, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm really sorry, but there's no beds in HDU. We're gonna have to cancel your surgery."
I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, I remember when you literally said to us like, or like you just messaged us and you were like, I'm not having it, and we were like, what? And you were like, there's no beds for us. Like they've just said like I've got the gown, but like like they're sending us home. Like I'm not having it,
yeah,
and we were just like, what? Like it was like like absolutely horrendous. I think up like for us as friends, up and I mean the whole thing was horrendous, but I think that was where me and Katie were literally just like absolutely devastated for you, like as friends that had like sort of went through it with you,
yeah.
when you were just like, because like just you'd Snapchat us, you were there, you were in the hospital, like you literally had the gown on, like everything was just ready to go.
Yeah, I was ready to go.
And when you just said like, oh no, like it was like absolutely horrific. Like I remember, I mean, honestly, like I was crying my eyes out, like, and that's how I felt as a friend. So how you felt, like,
I mean, I did cry for a good 4 hours. I'm gonna say, like without stopping, I
like
did cry.
I
And then
just don't know. I just do not know how you like got up every day after that. You
it was
just
really
like,
difficult.
it
Actually.
was it was really difficult, but honestly you were literally one of the strongest people I know. You just like got up every day after that and you were like, right, well I'm gonna get a new date, and it was like just the waiting game, wasn't it, waiting for a new date.
Yeah, well, they gave us another date when I was there. They said it was be the October the 13th. But I'd rang up like in between just to be like, oh, like, is it gonna go ahead? Blah blah blah. And they said that the surgeon had actually gone on the sick. And I was like, all right,
But
is
I
that the
remember
only surgeon in the northeast?
it was another frustration, wasn't it? Because obviously, because they'd cancelled the first time when you were literally there, you were
Mm-hmm.
obviously then extremely cautious because you were like, what happens if next time I get there, I've got the gown on and they're just like, no again? So
Yeah,
obviously, you were like, I'm going to keep ringing, you know, a couple of weeks because just to make sure. And
yeah.
I remember we were all like, what? Because when you rang, that's when they sort of said on the phone, oh, well, she's on leave. And we were like, but when were they going to ring and tell you that? Because like you hadn't been told, it just so
No,
happened that you'd rang,
like
and
if I hadn't rang,
you
I don't
wouldn't
think they
have
would have
known.
told us.
No.
So I remember I'd rang and I was like, oh, is it still going to go ahead on Tuesday? I think this was like the Thursday or something the week before. And she
Yeah.
was like, well, she's still on the sick, so we're not really 100% sure. We're trying to get somebody else in, but we'll just let you know. And
Yeah,
I was
like
like, well, on
as if it's
Tuesday?
just like some simple thing, like
Yeah.
as if
I
it's
was like, well, I'm going for my COVID test on Saturday, so like, will somebody let us know
let
soon?
us
Because
know,
I
yeah,
don't want to self-isolate if I don't
for no
have to.
reason, yeah.
And I was in Asda at the time at the checkout because you're always in a really ideal place.
Place
And to be
you get
honest,
bad
and she was
news,
like,
yeah.
"Yeah, it's not going to go ahead."
I feel like you probably got one of them like lump in your throat moments where you're trying to like not breathe to like
Yeah.
not let anything out. Oh
The
God.
woman was like, "Right, that'll be £100," and I didn't know whether to cry at the phone call or cry at the
Either
hundred
the
pounds.
price of the shopping. Oh God, yes. And that was October,
Yes,
and
such
then
a that
after
should be on the sick for a while.
yes. So you, I mean, in your head there, like you were literally like, I'm not getting it for ages. Like they're not
Yeah.
giving us any indication. It's just she's off. I
Hmm.
mean, we went. I remember we went on walks like near. I was with the dogs, and I was, and you were just like, all the saying is she's on the sick, and I was like, they've got to give you something. And she's like, you're like, they're not, and it was like, it was almost one of these things where you just we never thought it was going to happen because so many things had happened that stopped it.
Yeah, and then I thought, because obviously when you were getting closer to the winter, I was thinking COVID's going to go back up, which
Yeah,
it obviously has.
yeah,
And I was like, well, if I don't get in soon, I'm never going to get it.
to get in,
Like
yeah.
COVID will be like happening, and beds in HDU will be full again.
Mhm.
But luckily, like it did go ahead. I got a date for the 15th of December. Um, but this time because COVID had got worse, instead of the 3 days, sorry, self isolation that I had to do the first time, I had to do 2 weeks.
Yeah. which was such awkward timing as well, because I can't remember how the dates lay, but it was like we were in a tier where we're sort of all in the house anyway.
Yeah.
And then I think we got to a bit better, but then you had to go into like isolation anyway.
Before.
So like literally the day before that we sort of dropped a tier. So you were like, all right, brilliant.
I've been in self-isolation for about 6 months.
Yeah, it was literally like the longest stretch. But then obviously the worry this time around was obviously you were like, right, okay, last time they said minimum 5 days, I was just in the 5 days. But obviously this time around there was more complications, like they told you there might have been more things they needed to look into. So we were like, oh right, she's going in the 15th of December, please just let her come out the 20th. So
yeah, praying to God.
She's home for Christmas, like she's got a few days before Christmas to like find her feet again in the house, and just, and I mean, me, Katie, I think we were praying every single day, but unfortunately it didn't work out.
It did not, no. I went in on the 15th, and I was still like, I wouldn't put the gown on until they were telling us that I was going down for surgery, because I was like, I think that was just something like psychological.
Oh
that
yeah.
I thought, as soon as I put that gown on, if they make us take it off, yeah. So I was like just waiting, and then she was like, I'm ready to take you down for surgery. Why aren't you dressed? And I was like, well, no one told us that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I had to quickly put my gown on and everything, like pretty much sprinted down to the surgery, like just to get us in. And I remember like lying in the recovery room. I forgot to take my bra off. She was like, did you know you still have your wire bra on?
Honey.
I was like, oh, sorry.
Just whip this off.
I'll whip it off.
Right. Like to the surgeon, sorry, can you just pop that on the side, please?
They did. They hung it on the bottom of the bed.
Oh my God. It's so funny. Like, it's one of them things where people will be like, oh my God, yous are so dark, like why are you laughing about this? But it's like, honestly, I think, Sophie, this is how you get through that. After you've been,
you've got to laugh about it.
Like, I need to laugh my way through this.
Oh, you'll cry. And I've done too much of that.
I mean, if you think probably Sophie lying there literally petrified and worried to death, and then someone just tapping and be like, excuse me, you need to take your bra off. Like, come on.
And the last thing that I remember after, having to, drama of take the bra off, the last thing I remember, obviously they try and distract you when they're putting you under for surgery, was the anaesthetist was saying, oh, so I've bought my daughter some gerbils for Christmas. How do you hide them? And I was like, actually, how do you hide gerbils for 10 days?
10 days prior.
How would you do that?
You would have to put them in someone else's house or garage or something. I was
thinking, well, this is exactly the thoughts that were going through my head as
they did a good job of distracting you though, because you were probably like, oh yeah, how do you hide gerbils?
I think I woke up still thinking about it, like, how on earth do you do that? I woke up in the recovery, and I didn't mention it the first time, but they have like tampons up your nose.
Yeah.
To stop the packing, because they went up my nose for the surgery. And I was like, oh, you put those tampons back in.
Like, horrible.
I just remember it all being dead fuzzy.
Yeah.
I went to HDU, which is, it's not intensive care, it's like the step down from intensive care, the high dependency unit. So it's pretty much like intensive care. You were hooked up to all the machines, but it's one nurse to two patients rather than one nurse to one patient. So it's not as bad.
Yeah.
But I just remember being in so much pain and feeling really sick, and they kept us there for 2 days, and then they transferred us to a ward. And then I got to the ward, and luckily, obviously with COVID you weren't really allowed visitors, but I was really lucky in the fact that one of my best friends worked on that ward. So it was like I had a visitor, and then another one of my best friends worked in the special care baby unit, so she wears scrubs. So she snuck onto the ward quite a few times to see us, which was amazing. But I got onto the ward, and I was like, oh, like, obviously I didn't feel great, but I didn't feel as bad as I did when I was in HDU. So I thought, brilliant, starting the recovery.
Feeling a bit better,
yeah, starting the recovery. I've still got like 8 days till Christmas. I'll be home for sure. And then the next day, I woke up and my oxygen levels were really, really low. I was really struggling to breathe. And the first thing that you think of at the minute is, oh shit, I've got COVID.
Yeah.
And obviously, because they'd been up my nose for surgery, they couldn't do the test up my nose, so they were just doing it in my throat. So it wasn't 100% accurate, but I think they did a couple. And they diagnosed with a chest infection. So I got put on antibiotics, and they were like, don't worry, if you get to go home, we can switch you over to like oral tablets, it'll be fine. And I was like, amazing, not a problem, you can easily recover from a chest infection. Turns out it was actually pneumonia. So
Yes.
that's that.
Which, I mean, you didn't find out till you came out of hospital.
No.
Which probably looking back maybe was a good thing, because
Yeah, I
you
think
had the
so.
stress of it being that close to Christmas anyway, and you were so determined to be home. So I
Honestly,
think
the only thing I could look like, I was like,
yeah,
right, I'll be home for Christmas.
that's like what you were. So I think if they probably turned around and said like, oh, it's pneumonia, you would have just like, it would have been another thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So a few days had gone by, and I was feeling a lot better. I'd like, as disgusting as it is, little pause here. Have you listened to the most recent Rosie Ramsey, Chris Ramsey podcast?
No,
Where she talked about the catheter?
I'm a few behind, but I know she's been in a catheter after having a baby, hasn't she?
Yes,
Something
well, she said it was the most luxurious thing that she's ever had in her life. Now, I'm going to have to stop her there. I hated it. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
I felt dirty. I felt like a granny.
Sophie was messaging us. I mean, she wasn't on, like, you weren't on your phone a lot because obviously you were poorly. But the few times that she did message me and Katie, she was literally like, I've got a catheter in. I haven't washed my hair in so long. You were like, I feel so dirty. Me and Katie were like, I know, Sophie, but let's just focus on getting better. Like, we were like trying to get every positive. We were like, hopefully it's out tomorrow. Like, we were just trying to, like, I think because we were so helpless, like we couldn't come. If it was normal circumstances, we would have came and visited. Yeah, like, do you know what I mean? Like, we couldn't do any of that. So I think all we were trying to do as friends was like, get you to tomorrow. Like,
you brought that beautiful, you gave my dad that beautiful Santa cushion. I can't even describe it. It was just amazing.
Yeah. So me and Katie well, me and Katie and all the other work girls were like, obviously, usually you know, you get people beautiful flowers when they're poorly, but at the minute hospitals aren't accepting flowers, which is fair enough. So I was like, I knew my dad was allowed to come in a few times to visit us, so I was like, right, what can you take, because you just always think of flowers. I was like, flowers and chocolates you think of. Well, I couldn't take flowers, and she was like being sick all the time, so I was like, the last thing she's going to want is a chocolate. So I was like, what can I go out and buy her? So went out and I got this Santa. It was like, we'll insert a photo of it, right? I'll put a photo up because people are going to be like, what on earth? It was this Santa like plush cushion that was like half teddy, half cushion, and I was like, well, that's brilliant for hospital because it's like a comfort thing and she can lie on it. And
all the nurses loved it. They were like, yeah, I want one.
You were like the talk of the ward, weren't you, with the Santa cushion? And then what else was it? Some slipper socks, which you always need. And I was like, what can I get? And I seen these like lemon sherbety sweets, and I was like, oh, she feels sick, they'll be ideal. And I was like,
amazing.
Honestly, and we got our dad to take them in, and I was like, honestly, when you'd sent us the photo of you with the Santa cushion, it like made me laugh, because I was like, oh yeah, it's like cheered her up a little bit.
Honestly, I could have cried happy tears.
Oh, I
know. I think I would all cried out at that time.
It was horrible because obviously, like you say, in normal circumstances, you would just go in, wouldn't you? Like, you'd go and visit someone, and it's like we just couldn't do that. It was so helpless.
Well, like the first time I had like a visitor every day. My mum one day came 3 times.
Yeah, keeping you company and like,
But this time you couldn't have anyone.
So then, it was like, how many days before Christmas when they sort of said like, you're not going to be out?
Well, on the Monday, that was the day I got the catheter out, and they were like, my oxygen, I got, because I was on oxygen, because my oxygen levels had been so low with the chest infection, I was taken off the oxygen. I'd had a proper shower, washed my hair, felt like
it was like positive, wasn't it? Like, much more positive.
And the nurse practitioner came over and she was like, oh, my aim is to get you home on Wednesday for Christmas. And honestly, I was like, I could have danced around the ward. Like, I was so happy. And then the next morning, I just woke up and I was like, oh, I don't feel very well.
And what was that? Was that the 21st, was it?
Oh, 2nd.
22nd, yeah. I'm trying to think how many days it was before,
Yeah, it was exactly a week after my surgery, so, 22nd. And I got in my chair, like in the little chair, and I just remember feeling really, really sick. And because of all the tablets that I was on, and I hadn't ate anything all day, the nurse was like, have something to eat for lunch, and it might settle your tummy. So I was like, oh, right, okay. And then they brought out this lunch. Ellie, I think you're going to have to insert another picture.
If you've got that photo, send it. I'll pop it up.
It was horrific. I had one bite.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no.
And she said it to me and Kate, and she was like, this is my team. We were like, oh, this is me lunch. We're like, oh, right, yeah, how have you managed with that? It's like you don't want to be like, oh right, like.
And I remember just going back into the bed and I was sitting with the like sick bucket,
Be like, no.
and like 5 seconds later, the lunch was back in the sick
Again.
bucket.
Mm-hmm.
It was just not ideal. But I was sat for ages, and then I was like leaning over,
Mm-hmm.
and all of it, like not all of a sudden, because I've been doing it for a couple of days to be fair, but my nose started leaking.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave us like this little test tube, so I had to sit with
And
the
like
test tube
catch it.
attached to my nose with the sick bucket. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
What?
not an attractive sight for anybody.
It's quite a
And
look.
it was quite a look.
Yeah.
Did I not send you a picture of that as well?
Yeah, you definitely did. And we were like, all right. It's like you're trying to like keep us so positive, and you were literally like, I feel like shit. And it's like, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was at this point where we're just like, yeah, honestly, Sophie, like, yes.
So I collected like quite a bit of fluid in this test tube from my nose,
Mhm.
which, isn't really ideal because you don't see many people just walking down the street with their nose leaking, do
Yeah.
you?
Uh-huh.
Not quite ideal. So they'd send that away, and I think at that point I was like, oh, something's wrong.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, something's wrong here. And then the young doctor, I think it was the junior doctor, came in, and she had like this really sad look on her face, and I was like, oh, shit. Like I just kind of knew then, and she was like, I'm really sorry, but you got a CSF leak, which is where the brain, like the fluid that your brain sits in, was leaking through my nose.
Mhm.
So I think just where they'd gone up,
Where
it
they'd
hadn't
gone up, yeah.
properly, it was just leaking a little bit. So she said that they had to put a lumbar drain in, which is a drain in your spine.
Mhm. This
So
is so Sophie, explain what this is, because see, when Sophie explained what this is, I found it so fascinating, because I was literally saying to like James, my boyfriend at the time, I was like, you don't, like, you totally forget, obviously, until you were in that situation, that like obviously everything connects to your
yeah,
brain. So like every working part of your body connects to your brain. So when you were like, oh, this literally goes in through my spine, I was like, to your brain. But like, of course,
yeah.
like
It was
it's
like
mad.
it took me a while to get my head around it, because I was like,
Yeah,
why is it going in my
I was
spine
going
if
there.
it's going from my nose? Like I didn't get it. But if they take the fluid away from your spine, it
Mhm.
takes the fluid away from the wound that was in at the top of my nose, like going into my brain,
Mad.
which meant that it wouldn't be wet, so it could heal.
Yeah,
Because if it was leaking, it was still wet, it couldn't heal. Whereas if it was coming out the drain out of my spine,
yeah.
it meant that the wound area was
Heal
dry,
yourself.
could
Yeah,
heal. I mean, it did take me a while to get my head around that,
yeah. It
because
was mad.
I was
When
just
you
like,
first told us, we were
don't get
like,
it.
"What?" Like, it's fascinating. It's mad.
Yeah.
And then, I
So,
mean, so yeah, at that point, you were like, "Right, I'm not getting home for
yeah,
Christmas."
so at that point they told us that you've got to keep the drain in and on for 5 days, and then they turn the drain off. And then just so when the drain's off, it means that you've got to stay in hospital for another day just to make sure that it's not leaking still. So
Yeah,
when it's
that it's
on,
like done its job, sort of
yes,
thing. Yeah.
exactly. So the 5 days that it's on, it's like giving the wound time to heal, and then the like lock it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they've got to keep you in for more observation. So they told us then that you've got to be in at least for 5 days, and then for observation after. I knew then that I was obviously not getting home for
Yeah.
Christmas.
Hmm.
So that was probably the worst
The
day.
worst day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I remember, and it was also the day that Newcastle United were in the quarterfinals of the League Cup, and my dad, I knew, wanted to watch it, so I was like, "Oh, it's fine. I'm just a bit cry. Don't watch it anyways."
Yeah.
And to be fair, I just kind of slept through, and then we got beat. I mean, it just made the day even worse.
Sophie is an avid Newcastle United supporter.
Yeah,
We all say she's a lad. Whenever like
yeah,
we go to like meet her on like, obviously pre-COVID, when we'd go to meet her on nights out, she'd be like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna be at the match with me dad, so I'll like meet you in the next pub." And we're like, "Aye, Harry, Sophie." Like she's like, she loves the footy. And now with Katie's boyfriend Neil, whenever like Katie's got like a football query, she's like, "Sophie, what does this mean?" About like some football thing. It's brilliant. It's so funny. But
full
yeah,
full of knowledge.
yeah, full of football knowledge. So then, yes, you obviously had that in for the 5 days, and
Yeah.
then that took you to what date after
So
Christmas?
I think that took us up till the 27th. So
Yeah.
I had Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with it on and in. And I remember on Christmas Eve when my dad had come to visit, because you were allowed one visitor for the whole time that you were there. They could book a slot, so they could come once a day, but it had to be the same person because of COVID.
Yeah.
He came on Christmas Eve, like obviously to see us and stuff. And the doctor came in and was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but I need to give you some more stitches." So I was lying there on the bed, and my dad's not good with needles or blood or
Yes, it
anything.
was like that.
And I was like, "Dad, I'm really sorry. This is not how you wanted to spend your Christmas Eve."
I mean, it wasn't how you wanted to spend yours
Well,
either. I'll
no,
let you off on that one.
but he could
Yeah.
at least be out. I
Yeah.
mean, in the house, not like he could actually go out. But
I know that
yeah,
was
so that was
one
in
thing
2027.
that me and Katie just kept saying to her. We were like, at least this year, like, you're not missing anything. We were like,
Yeah,
although we're just at home for Christmas Day, and it's obviously, of course, you'd rather be at home with your family than in hospital. But we were just like, at least we're not going out anywhere. Like, we're not doing anything, so at least you're not missing anything. And we were like, in next year, it's going to be 10 times better.
10 times better.
Yeah.
Well, I think as well, like normally I always go to the bridal path on Christmas Eve. I will go to Wickham, and I think if I was sat in that hospital bed
And you'd
watching
see
Instagram
videos.
posts of people in the pub, it would tip us over the
Yeah,
edge.
at least
I wouldn't
nobody
know.
could do it, so you weren't missing
Like,
out on anything. Yeah.
no.
No.
And my friend Abby, who was the one who kept sneaking in with the scrubs on, she
Yeah.
brought her the Christmas Eve box.
Oh, lush.
New jammers, the
Oh,
lot. That was lovely.
yes. And then obviously after Christmas, things started to get a bit better. So like you said, on
Yeah.
the 27th, they took that out.
Yes, the bill locked it and I had to keep carrying it around for the 2 days.
Right.
But
Yeah.
when it was on, I could only lie down, like I couldn't sit up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really like it wasn't very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, hospital beds are uncomfortable at the best of times, but I had to like lie flat because when you stand up, the fluid like drains.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
had to lie flat so that it wasn't draining off your brain and giving you more headaches.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember I would just like lie on my side and watch films on my iPad quite often, but like I couldn't read a book. Every time I wanted to eat or drink, which wasn't very often to be fair, I would have to like lock it and sit up, but I could only sit up for like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
I had to sit back down and lie back down. So at least when it was locked for those final 2 days I was in hospital, I could sit up.
Yeah, it felt like a bit better.
Yeah, I did feel a lot better. And then on the final day, I just wanted to get home.
Yeah.
I was like, is
was
someone
it
going to take us out?
Was it the 29th or 30th that you came back?
The 29th, yeah.
29th, yeah.
So like our second Christmas Eve. I couldn't fault the nurses. They were all amazing. The ward was amazing. All the care was amazing. So big up the NHS.
Yes.
They're incredible.
Love it. And was it the RVI you were at?
I was at the RVI, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, you'll know if you're from this area about the RVI, but yeah, really, really good hospital, and obviously took very good care of you. So
yes, I did. I'm still here.
She's still
so
here,
so that
matters. And yeah, so like I mean, if people have got to this point and kept up with our timeline of going back and forth for everything.
Yeah, sorry, it's quite confusing.
So yeah, that was in December 2020, just gone. Obviously now we're sort of just into February, so it really has not been that long at all. But Sophie's like back to work, working from home. Which is probably like a blessing in disguise because you're not having to like go anywhere at the minute, which is probably a bit better as well for you.
Yeah.
Taking it a bit easier. But I mean, you were dying to just sort of get back to work even for a bit because I could tell in the past sort of few weeks that you were like getting a bit sick, like you were getting a bit bored because obviously you had your recovery time and then after that you were like, right, like I'm getting a bit.
Yeah, it was just like being stuck in the house again. Like at least with work, I am stuck in the house still, but I've got something to do for 8 hours a day. Whereas like I've sorted my wardrobe out about 5 times. Like there's nothing else I can sort out with the wardrobe.
But yeah, I mean, we're into February now, and like we said, touch wood.
Yeah, touch wood.
You know, things you've obviously you feel good. Like overall, which is amazing. And obviously I think did you say you have some sort of checkup at 8 weeks or something, is it?
Yeah, so actually it's next Thursday.
Next
I'm
Thursday.
18, yeah. So I go in then for some more tests and stuff, and then I've got a phone appointment.
Yeah, so fingers crossed that, you know, everything then is fine and everything comes back as like everything's worked and stuff. But yeah, I mean, just you're like super. I mean, I call you all the time, like Superwoman. You literally are. Like, honestly, I know I'm lucky to know a lot of strong people in my life, but you're up there, Sophie. You are. You're like.
Oh,
You're
so are you though. You're just as strong.
See, this is what I mean. Everyone, listen to her. She's like, yeah, but so are you. She does. She deflects. She could literally. I swear, every limb in her body could be hanging off, and she'll be like, "Do you want me to drive today?" I'm like, "No, no." Like when we've been meeting, like when we could actually meet to go on walks and stuff, she was like, "Shall I drive?" I'm like, "No, Sophie. Listen, we're looking after you now. You've literally been through the year of hell, but." I mean, obviously, I know we're not completely back to normal yet in any sense of the word,
No.
but fingers crossed that, last year was a write-off for everyone, but for you, it was a write-off in a completely different way. And
Yeah.
that going forward, into this spring and summer, we're going to like make up for it, and you're going to
Oh,
be
100%.
back to your normal self. Yes. I mean, we'll probably wrap it up here. Goodness knows how long we've
I
been.
know, I think we've gone on for quite a while. I'm sorry for all the listeners.
No, I say it at the end of every episode. I've waffled on for God knows how long. I'll soon find out. But yes, thank you so much to my lovely guest Sophie.
It
And
was chatting to you.
oh yes, of course. And of course we'll have her back on again at some point. But yeah, I just wanted to reiterate to everyone, like anyone who's listened who has maybe had a family member that's went through a similar medical thing, or it's even just it's knowledge, isn't it? It's like knowledge is power. Like I've learned so many things just being friends with you because of what different things you've went through. And
Well, I'd never even heard of. I was diagnosed with Cushing's. I've never actually. We've got to the end of the podcast, and I've never actually said what I was diagnosed with. I was diagnosed with Cushing's disease.
See, and you wouldn't have even.
And I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, this is what I mean. I would never have even known. And I just think knowledge is power, and I think it's important to have conversations like this in a non-really serious manner as well, because it's like you've been not taking away any of the horrible things that Sophie's been through, but it's like when you talk about it, I know you don't want to talk about it where it's like dark and gloomy and it's going to scare people. Like you want to talk about it so that it's a conversation that you should be able to have like with a friend, and you should be able to say like, God, I went through this, but like, look, it's fine, I'm here now, and like the positive that can come out of it. I mean, if Sophie's been through this twice and can sit here and laugh and and take the good out of everything, then I think it's been a good conversation, put it that way, if we can go through it like that. It's important to talk about, and yes, I think everyone will realise how strong you are and how much you are like little Superwoman, as I always call you. But yes, thank you everyone for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.
You have been listening to C Cups and Teacups, the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you download, stream and follow, and there'll be lots more episodes coming soon.